It's that time of the year again, folks. The top 10 Zeta list. I want to first of all thank you guys so much. The last Zeta list that we did back in December 2017 got almost 170,000 views and almost 3,000 likes. So thank you so much for watching that video. And hopefully today you enjoy the video just as much, because I like to do these Zeta videos on a quarterly update, because not much changes from a month-to-month basis, but a lot changes over a span of 3 to 4 months, and a lot has happened since December. I mean, Jedi Training Raid came out in December. Emperor Palpatine and Vader got a rework. The Sith got so much better, so much has changed. And as I'm showing you right here, this was the list back in December, and we got a lot of changes in here. So let's just get right into it and dive into number 10, which used to be number 1, and that was Finn Zeta. I still haven't activated my Rose or Holdo yet on my account, but the first Zeta we're going to talk about is Finn Zeta, and more specifically, the Zeta on his leadership. Now, before Jedi Training Raid came around, this Zeta was all the rage, because one Zeta on Finn completely reinvigorated the whole entire Resistance faction, and to this day, the Resistance with a Finn Zeta can beat pretty much any team out there, and the only problem they have is that they kind of suck on defense. So more specifically, with Finn Zeta, once you add it to him, whenever a Resistance ally loses foresight, they gain advantage for 2 turns, and the most important thing is whenever an enemy takes damage from exposed, you reduce the cooldowns of all Resistance allies by 1, and you grant them 35% turn meter. There's more to this ability, but this is the core mechanic. So pretty much, if you've seen, you want to just spam as many exposes out there with Poe, and then you want to keep hitting exposes, which allows the exposed turn meter train to go for Finn Zeta and all the Resistance allies. And if you keep hitting exposed, you can get Poe to constantly use his taunt ability to spam the exposes on the other team, and allow other people such as Rey or Finn constantly using their special ability. Again, this is something you can use for territory wars. It's a great offensive counter to many teams out there. And this is Zeta, which is great for people who don't have Jedi Training Raid yet, but they want to start enjoying the benefits of the Resistance faction. So by far, although this was number 1 a couple months ago, I still believe it holds a good place in the top 10 today. Following up with a Resistance character, we're going to move on to a First Order character. Now, I talk so highly about Kylo Ren Unmasked and the fact that he has the best free-to-play farming location in the whole entire game, and he's a great beginner character and a great end game player. But also, I want to talk about Merciless Pursuit, which is the Zeta on his leadership. There's a lot of stuff jam-packed in the Zeta. You're getting plus 15% more critical damage, plus 5 more speed, plus 5% turn meter gain. But the cool part is, whenever a First Order ally is gaining a status effect, whether it's positive or a negative status effect, they're recovering 5% health and 5% protection, which makes this team fairly good for the Sith raid, because a lot of debuffs are involved in there. And for example, Kylo Ren, when he's getting whacked with a bunch of debuffs, he's regaining a bunch of health and protection. So very solid for the Sith raid, the AAT raid. You can also make a good First Order Rancor raid squad as well. And it's pretty solid for Arena, not the top end meta team in Arena, but it's great against a variety of teams out there. So by far, if you're looking to get a First Order team so you can knock out that BB-8 event, for example, Kylo Ren Unmasked, once you give him the Zeta, the First Order gets so much better. Number 8 on our list, we are going to have BB-8. Now, he did not make the December 2017 list because Jedi Training Raid, at the time I made the video, did not exist in the game yet, so BB-8 didn't make much sense. But now with Jedi Training Raid in full swing and just destroying the game in many aspects, BB-8 is a Zeta I highly recommend to people, and more specifically, you want the roll with the punches Zeta ability. Now, as you know, with BB-8, before you give him the Zeta, he has a counter chance. So if someone hits him, he can come back, apply tenacity down, and maybe apply daze later on. But when you give him the Zeta, when he attacks out of turn, he calls in another random Resistance ally to assist, and this pairs wonderfully with Jedi Training Raid, because when Jedi Training Raid uses her special, she can call BB-8 to assist, and when BB-8 is called to assist, he's attacking out of turn, which allows him to call another Resistance ally to assist, whether that be Jedi Training Raid or Holdo or Scavenger Ray, so many other characters. So this is great, especially for the Sith raid, because this alone, when paired with Jedi Training Raid, can churn out a couple 100,000 more damage just by giving the Zeta alone. And if you don't have Jedi Training Raid yet, you don't have to worry about getting the Zeta, but once you do get Jedi Training Raid, go ahead and Zeta BB-8 and just roll the punches, and you're going to get so much benefit out of it. Number 7 on the list, by far my favorite Zeta investment ever in Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, and one that I invested in on day 1 of their rework. It's going to be General Veers. And the great thing is, this Zeta is not attached to the leadership. It's attached to a unique, which allows you to use General Veers in so many different types of lineups. Obviously, if you're running an Imperial Trooper team, usually you're running a Veers lead, but this allows you to put him in the background in a non-leadership role. And as you see here, we're getting a bunch of extra percentages, which in total, whenever an enemy is defeated while Veers is active, Imperial Trooper allies are gaining offense up. They're guaranteed to get offense up now with the Zeta for 2 turns, and they're guaranteed. They have a 100% chance for a 50% turn meter gain, and they also recover 10% protection. So you're guaranteed offense, guaranteed all this huge turn meter, and if you're running Snow Trooper, this provides even so much more turn meter for your team on top of it, and it especially knocks out things like the Dark Side territory battles, territory wars, and some good teams out there such as the Night Sisters, because they constantly revive, and every time you're destroying these revived Night Sisters, they're just granting you so much offense, protection, and turn meter gain. So number 6 on our list has to deal with the Night Sisters. As you see, my Night Sister squad isn't really up to par just yet, but the good thing is Asajj Ventress, her unique is very solid. Now, she has 2 Zetas. She has 1 on her leadership and 1 on her unique ability. And on the list, I mainly want to talk about her unique ability because it works in so many different types of lineups, and it's not constrained for the Night Sisters only. The reason why we're highlighting this Zeta is because we see so much of Asajj kicking butt in things like the AAT raid. A lot of AAT solo squads involve Asajj Ventress. She's also pretty solid for the Sith raid as well. Night Sisters are very good in the Sith raid, and especially because of the fact her unique is all about allies and enemies dying. When enemies and allies are being defeated, she's gaining a ton of bonuses, and her offense can stack through the roof and do some huge damage in the end. The whole thing reads, whenever an ally or enemy is defeated, Asajj is guaranteed to get 35% turn meter and guaranteed to get plus 15% offense, plus 15% critical chance, and plus 5% max health, all of that, which is constantly stacking until the end of the encounter, and Asajj has plus 15 speed for each enemy with no buffs. So if your main focus is trying to get a really good raid runs, this Zeta allows you to work in a bunch of different lineups, and this alone will get you some pretty big damage output. So by far, strictly for the raid speaking, Asajj is pretty good, but also she's pretty good in things such as arena and whatnot. She makes the Night Sisters pretty good, but mainly this is a very good all-around Zeta ability that's great for tackling the raids. Now we move on to number 5, halfway through our list, ladies and gentlemen, and this character was in our December 2017 Zeta list, and I'm bringing it back for May 2018, and that's going to be Commander Luke Skywalker. Now this guy has 3 Zeta abilities, and I will just point out that the leadership is nice, especially if you're trying to run a rebel team against Palpatine teams, for example. This is a pretty good Zeta, but that's not our main focus. The main focus, if you're getting Commander Luke Skywalker, I highly recommend you give the Zeta on It Binds All Things, the only Zeta that I gave to Luke as of now. The great thing about this Zeta is whenever Luke resists a detrimental effect, which happens quite a lot in Arena, for example, he's recovering 5% protection, and whenever Luke inflicts a debuff, he gains 10% turn meter, and other allies, doesn't matter what faction they are, they gain half that amount. And I love unique abilities, kind of like Veers, that grant bonuses to that character, but they're also granting bonuses to everyone else on the team, and this is why Luke is on the list. So being able to use him in all these different types of events, you want him to get as much turn meter as possible, and turn meter is probably the #1 mechanic in the game to win battles. So being able to give Luke turn meter and other allies turn meter, that's a game changer right there. So that is why Luke is on this list. But overall, a very solid character overall, and if you want to give the Zetas to his other abilities, they're pretty decent, but this by far is the one you should invest in at the very minimum once you do get Commander Luke Skywalker. We got another Rebel Scum member on the list. Here at number 4, we have Han Solo. He also made the list in 2017, and to this day, this is one of the craziest and best Zeta investments ever in this game, and it's going to come down to Han's Shoots First ability. First reason why this is so good is, first of all, you're getting 2 attacks from one of the strongest attackers in the game, which can total to 30 or even 40,000 damage, and outside of this, he's just really important because, as you know, Han shoots first. He always outruns everyone in the game, so he's guaranteed to hit someone for a stun, and then he follows up with a second attack. But also, for the Sith raid, one of the most important characters for Phase 3 in what is known as the Chex Mix team, and once you pair it up with Deathmark, him and Death Trooper, they can put out easily 1,000,000 damage at minimum in mere seconds. Number 3 on the list, a very safe choice for a lot of people, R2-D2. Now, R2-D2, I'm just going to say right now, you really should give the Zeta to both of his abilities. We're just going to count this as one slot, but both Zetas are very, very important, and it's especially important for light side factions out there. At one point in time, I said that combat analysis was one of the most overpowered abilities out there, because once you give R2-D2 the Zeta, anytime a light side character scores a critical hit, they just dispel all negative status effects off themselves. That right there was extremely powerful, and it shut down so many debuff heavy teams before Palpatine came back in the mix. And then we move on to Number Crunch. Now, most people give the Zeta to Number Crunch first, then Combat Analysis second. So before you give him the Zeta investment, the first thing that happens is R2-D2 is gaining a bunch of bonuses depending on what characters are with him. But once you give him the Zeta on his unique ability Number Crunch, he then takes all those bonuses, adds it to himself, and then whatever his potency, health, protection is, he's then going ahead and granting other droid, other republic, other resistance, and other rebel allies a percent of all of his stats he has. R2-D2, I can guarantee you, will be important. So if you give the Zetas to R2-D2, I'm pretty sure it won't be a waste of a Zeta, and even a year or two from now, it still will be very important. Then we come down to number 2 on our list, which is going to be Papa Palpatine, Emperor Palpatine himself, being here, and it's great to see him finally be in this top 10 Zeta list, because at one point he had no Zetas whatsoever, but as of this past February, he has become one of the best characters in the game, and it's mainly strictly because of his leadership, the Emperor of the Galactic Empire. Then once you give the Zeta to Emperor Palpatine's leadership, it completely transformed the Empire faction, but most importantly the Sith faction, because as of now it's really a Sith meta going on right now. But when you do give the Zeta, whenever a debuff expires, whether it's cleansed or it just expires over time, Empire and Sith allies gain 5% turn meter. This leadership is so important because before this, General Kenobi, R2-D2's unique Captain Rex completely shut down debuff heavy teams. Well, people can still cleanse their debuffs, but they're being penalized drastically by giving Emperor Palpatine and his Empire and Sith ally a ton of turn meter. For example, if there's 5 debuffs on a character and they cleanse it, right there, you're giving all the Empire and Sith allies under Palpatine 25% turn meter. And this starts the turn meter train, and if you've seen many videos out there, sometimes they just completely walk over you because they get so much turn meter and you never get a chance to step in. With Palpatine stuns, the Thrawn's fractures, Science, Pain, Nihilus's health down and cooldown increases, there's times you just get mowed over because you can't keep up with the turn meter they're getting. And now number 1 on our list is going to be Jedi Training Rey. Now, Jedi Training Rey, I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys saw this coming. The main Zeta you want to focus on is all about her leadership ability, inspirational presence, and kind of like Finn Zeta, this has a lot of important exposed synergy that we have to talk about. But what it says is whenever a resistance ally uses a special ability, all exposed enemies lose 5% turn meter, which can't be resisted and can't be evaded. And then when a resistance ally uses a special ability, if they aren't debuffed, you get to reduce their cooldowns by 1. And the good thing is it's not hard to apply exposes under a Jedi Training Rey lead. I mean, when you're using resistance characters and they're getting a critical hit, they have a very high % chance to inflict expose, and inflicting expose cannot be resisted. So you can you have unresistible expose, you have unresistible turn meter gain, and if you have no debuffs and you're using a special ability and you're a resistance ally, you're reducing your cooldowns by 1. And to this day, pretty much most people agree that this is by far one of the best Zetas for the Sith raid and pretty much the raids in general, and this is going to be a Zeta ability that's going to last for quite a long time because the Resistance is one of the best factions in the entire game. And that's our list for May 2018, the top 10 Zeta list right there, my friends. And all these guys have some pretty fantastic Zetas. They've either transformed the faction into a whole other level or take a character from amazing to bonkers afterwards. And I know there's a lot of other great Zetas out there, so I'm going to show an honorable mentions list in case you guys want some other options. I'm not going to go in depth about these Zetas, but these Zetas are also pretty decent. I didn't think they're as amazing as the other ones. For example, Kylo Ren, Veers, and Jedi Training Rey and Finn, they completely transform their factions. These Zetas are pretty good. They don't really transform too much, but they are very solid, and you will get some use out of them if you do go ahead and give the Zeta. But again, there's so many opportunities out there, but hopefully this 10 list and this honorable mentions list gives you a lot to choose from for your next Zeta investment. So that's going to wrap it up. That's our quarterly update on the top 10 Zetas in the game. Stay tuned, maybe in 3-4 months when the game probably changes drastically, we'll do our next video. But if you did enjoy the video, go ahead, leave me a like, comment down below, let me know what Zetas you like or what other Zetas should be considered, and subscribe so you're not missing a thing. And as always,